All right, let's turn our attention to other stories now. President Muhammadu Buhari has assured the nation that his government is committed to the absolute defeat of terrorists in any part of the country.
Yeah, the president stated this in Abuja in a message at the official launch of the reviewed National Counterterrorism Strategy documents. He was represented by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo.
We must also educate the millions of other young men through the leadership of our faith. I must let them know that neither Islam or any other religion that we know endorses the slaughter of anyone. But anyone who kills the innocent and shouts that God is great either does not know the meaning of those words or is simply deranged. We must work hard to provide opportunities for these young men and women who for years have lacked education.
We have immediately keyed into all the strategies of the federal government of Nigeria. Obviously, the federal government controls the security agencies. We are chief security officers of our states, but we still have to rely on the federal government to supply the might to fight whatever menace that may arise in the states.
Terrorism, as you know, is something that is not only kinetic, also have to do with the soft approach. What do I mean by that? It is not only meant for the law enforcement agencies to combat. You and I, the populace, need to be brought on board. That's why we are now incorporating other ministries, departments, and agencies that are not necessarily law enforcement to be on board.
All right, a researcher at Sussex University in the United Kingdom, Uche Igwe, joins us now on Skype from the UK. Uche, it's good to have you on TVC Breakfast. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing well. It's good to see you. Now, the point there is you have been in the country very often, and you have crisscrossed parts of the country, especially where there are issues either in the Niger Delta or in the northeast or in the east or in the, as the case may be. Now, you have also, I remember interviewing you sometime, and you talked about some strategies that the government should put in place to ensure that we can have some relative peace as the case may be. Watching from where you are, how the government, all the strategies the government is putting in place now, how satisfied are you, or how on the right path is government towards putting an end to the issue of either any kind or semblance of terrorist activity or violence as the case may be?
Well, I think that the government, especially the military, have done well. Boko Haram has been considerably degraded. The attacks have become less and less rampant. Fatalities have also reduced. So on the northeast, I will tell you that there's a whole lot of progress, in my view, that has been made to curtail the insurgents. Now, in the Niger Delta, I don't think that, that we have recorded as much success. I read about the Operation Crocodile Smile that has just started. They have started recording successes. There's a whole lot that needs to be done. And the Niger Delta situation, in my view, is slightly more complicated. Right now, I'm sure you're aware that the cleanup of the Niger Delta that has just been flagged off in Ogoni is about to commence. And the environmental concerns are quite important because as the Niger Delta Avengers continue to destroy oil installations and side-by-side cleanup is going on, you cannot clean up Ogoni and allow the other parts of the Niger Delta, Borno or Krika and other areas to continue. The Ogoni is not an island. So there's a whole lot of caution that needs to happen. And like I have said in the past, the carrot and stick approach, should be employed in the Niger Delta. One side there will be military intervention when it is necessary. Another side is some conversation so that also there won't be a whole lot of environmental damage as a result of some of these activities. That's my view.
And talking about the crisis in the Niger Delta, especially where Nigeria's interests are concerned, we of course know, I'm sure you too, that talks have since commenced now, but there does appear to some people that it's not as inclusive enough as it should be, especially when we now see recent attacks still being carried out in the region. Now, this time around claimed by a pro-Urobo group, now saying the JP Clark or the Clark committee will not, respect their own interests. Now, is this part of the complication that you earlier spoke about?
Yes, because some of these groups, because of the kind of permit me to use the word conflict economy that the Niger Delta agitation has been turned into, you see a whole lot of fragmentation in some of these activities, some of these organizations, underground organizations. They continue to mutate by the day, especially because in the past some of these activities have been money-making activities, they have been economic activities. So it's a little complicated, to say for certain this is the Niger Delta Avengers, for instance. And as you want to start talking to Niger Delta Avengers, another group will emerge, another group will emerge. So it's really, really difficult. I think that, the Niger Delta leaders should rise up to understand that it is in no one's interest for this criminality in the form of agitation going on at the moment to continue. It is not in the interest of the Nigerian government. It is not in the interest of the long-term livelihood of the Niger Delta communities, because the Niger Delta people are people who are originally farmers and fishermen, and oil is not an inexhaustible resource. What if by tomorrow oil is exhausted, or you can see a whole lot of price issues and volatility of oil prices? What if it gets worse than this, as is being predicted? What will happen to the long-term livelihood of the people of the region when there would have been a whole lot of pollution? So I think that, beyond the I don't think that conversation, especially now that it has become an economic activity, money-making activity, conversation and dialogue is helpful in the short term, but in the long term, the people must know that it benefits nobody to continue to fragment groups, group today, Niger Delta Avengers tomorrow, MEND next tomorrow. I don't think that is in the long-term interest of anybody, not Nigerian government, not the Niger Delta people themselves. So yes, in the short term, dialogue, but in the long term, the people must know that this is an activity that benefits nobody and should stop.
All right, now we keep seeing, you mentioned the issue of fragmentations generally within the agitation. Now, we keep seeing new groups coming up, new frontiers coming up.
Yes, because it's lucrative. Yeah. Because it's lucrative.
All right, now, but how does this compound the agitations of the Niger Deltans generally when they are talking about our region is decimated, our region is polluted, our region, they keep mentioning our region. But all this fragmentation, how does it compound the agitation?
No, I hope you realize that these points of agitation have been points that have been on the table in the last more than 30, 40 years. These points were there when Niger Delta Development Commission was created. These points were there when a full-fledged ministry, the Niger Delta Ministry, was created. These points were there until we got to the point of 13% derivation. Really, frankly speaking, there are opportunities that we need to begin to ask questions, even among ourselves. Where are the Niger Delta governors, for instance? Where is the Niger Delta Development Commission? So I think that, instead of groups continue to multiply for pecuniary benefits, if you ask me, if they really, really are interested in the long-term sustainable development of the Niger Delta region, they should direct questions to the Niger Delta Commission, Niger Delta Development Commission, to the Niger Delta governors how 13% derivation is being spent at the moment, or the Niger Delta Ministry, and not continue to recycle. Because if you look at this, these things are being recycled. If it is really the Niger Delta region and the interest of the region that is at stake, how come you know, these whole points are being recycled? Is it really these points that are driving this agitation?
And it has also...
If so, the answers to the questions that have been recycled over the years are in the public domain. So if you ask me, this agitation would have ended if it was really about environmental degradation and all they have been raising. For instance, the organic cleanup has commenced. If it is about pollution, how come they cannot engage the Federal Minister of Environment, you know, and the high prep coordinating the environmental cleanup in the region, to ask them to do what they promised to do, rather than begin to continue to blow installations, oil installations, and complicate the already very, very deleterious environmental situation in the region.
And Uche, hasn't it also become a familiar narrative now in the Niger Delta region? I mean, they know just where exactly Nigeria will hurt, and they know how to attack Nigeria. Eventually, they still get to be invited to dialogue. Now, still on this latest groups that are cropping up now that the Avengers have gotten the attention of the federal government. You know, how worrisome is this trend to you?
Now, I'm going to say two things. First is that when you say hot Nigeria, the Niger Delta region remains part of Nigeria. If, for instance, the oil production drops from 2-point-something million barrels per day to 1-point-something million barrels per day, what it means is that the Federation account is affected. What Niger Delta governors, for instance, take home is affected. So what are we talking about? Is it possible for Niger Delta people or people agitating for Niger Delta interests hurt Nigeria without hurting the Niger Delta interest? That is the first thing. Now, the second thing now I want to talk about is that these fragmentations, you know, is it really about the interest of the Niger Delta? And I've said this before, you know, the way the Nigerian Federation is structured, it is difficult to hurt the Nigerian interest without hurting the Niger Delta interest. How come the Niger Delta interest has become something that you can isolate from the Nigerian interest? And my answer is no. You know, anybody who thinks that the Nigerian interest as a nation will be hurt and the Niger Delta interest will be preserved should have everything. That is my view. Because this interest, the way the Constitution is structured at the moment, these interests are intricately intertwined. And if you hurt Nigeria, you hurt the region. And I think that the Niger Delta people should realize that.
Okay, now there are lots of calls for dialogue and trying to see how they can get government and these Avengers and all of the agitation to a round table to discuss. Remember the strategy of the amnesty program that we or Nigerians were looking forward to, saying, okay, fine, this is the final antidote to the problems and issues in the Niger Delta. And after that, we still saw Avengers and other people coming up. So if there's this dialogue and issues are settled and issues are agreed, how sure are we that others may not come up again after this whole dialogue, as the case may be? But certainly, I'm going to make you, Uche, I'm going to make you answer that question. But certainly, we'll go on a break shortly. I'm going to put you on hold, and then we come back.
$41 billion statutory budget of the Federal Capital Territory passed by both houses of the National Assembly.
Now, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly issues, Itai Inang, said this at a news conference in Abuja. Now, a breakdown of the capital component of the budget shows that the Federal Capital Development Agency Engineering Services got 70.5 billion naira, The Satellite Towns Development Agency got 21.7 billion naira, while the FCT administration received 2.7 billion naira. Also, FCT Water Board was allocated 1.3 billion naira, and the Abuja Environmental Protection Board got 1.06 billion naira. Now, all is set for President Muhammadu Buhari's visit to Osun State. The president is due in the state Thursday on a one-day visit where he will commission the 3,000 capacity Oshogbo Government High School.
And it's one of the 20 high schools being constructed by the state government in a bid to restructure education. The Acting Inspector General of Police has called on members of the public to report cases of police operatives demanding money for bail. And this is coming following reports of this practice in many police stations nationwide, despite posters adorning police facilities that bail is free. Ibrahim Idris, who spoke before the start of a conference with senior officers, insists police officers should be above board in their professional conduct.
Now, the Lagos Ministry of Environment says it will continue identifying flood-prone areas and poor drainage facilities in the state to avoid any form of disaster associated with the rainy season.
And this was part of the submission of the Commissioner for the Environment at a press briefing, which had heads of other agencies linked with the environment. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, says the federal government's failure to meet its 2009 agreement may lead to another educational crisis in the country.
Now, ASU's Northwest Zonal Coordinator, Mahmoud Lawal, wants government to quickly address funding for universities, as well as payment of salaries, allowances, and pensions. Now, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has expressed his willingness to work with local content providers in bringing Nigerian communities to the internet.
And he had a town hall meeting in Lagos with technology developers and enthusiasts. Zuckerberg says the presence of Nigerian local contents on Facebook would ensure that more people are connected. He hopes to get everyone in the world connected online within the next 10 to 15 years.
Certainly, that's a big project. We're looking forward to benefits of Africa generally. But that's a news update for this time. All right, if you just tuned in and joining us now, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and right now we're talking and looking at the issues of the dialogue, the call for dialogue between the federal government and militants in the Niger Delta. And apart from that, we're looking at other security issues and challenges generally, either distracting the government or distracting the people, or making the people too conscious of their environment when they're supposed to be involved in economic activities and so on. So we have with us on Skype from the UK, Uche Igwe. He is a researcher at the University of Sussex, and he's joining us from there. Now, Uche, it's good to have you back on right now. Now, I was asking a question earlier on. Now, when amnesty program came on, Nigerians rested assured that it was the antidote to finding lasting peace in the Niger Delta. But obviously, it is not the case right now. So if this dialogue goes on and there are settlements and we no longer have avengers, is it likely, or how likely is it that other avengers or other agitators wouldn't come up again in the future?
Well, what is clear here is that the amnesty program has done its bit in reducing agitations at that time and bringing the ex-agitators around the table for some training of some sort. But the real issue here is that with the emergence of Avengers and some of these other informal groups by the day, it is very clear that the amnesty program is not a sustainable solution to, the Niger Delta agitation and everything. So I think that, with the imminent closure of the amnesty program, it is important for us, Nigerians, Niger Delta leaders, to do a soul searching for a sustainable solution. Because the emergence of the Avengers with the same set of issues that the militants of old put on the table it means that, although the amnesty has done quite a lot, to reduce the stockpile of arms, to bring some of these agitators around the table, but the issues are still there. So it means that, the Niger Delta people themselves must take a decision that it is in no one's interest, to continue to blow oil installations, to continue to pollute the environment, and to continue to proliferate arms stockpile in the region, terrorize life, and multiply criminality. And then on the level of criminality, I want to, single out the Nigerian military, for a lot of commendation. The Operation Crocodile Smile that was launched, a couple of weeks ago, the kind of feedback we're getting is that, a whole lot of stockpile of arms in the Niger Delta, have been discovered. A whole lot of criminals are being flushed up. And, you can see that there's a thin line that separates agitation from criminality. And that is why the Niger Delta governors, the Niger Delta leaders must rise that this is an effort that has paid no one. In the last 20 years or so, can we do a stock taking whether the Niger Delta has been better off since the agitation, with the agitation or without it? Can we imagine a Niger Delta without agitation? Can we imagine what the environment would have been? Is the Niger Delta really better with this agitation? Those are the important questions that the Niger Deltans themselves, ourselves, because I am one, we need to ask ourselves whether our region has been better with militancy or without militancy, and whether we have really, really achieved anything. Mind you, if we have achieved anything, this same set of demands that were on the table 20 years ago cannot still be on the table. That means we need to change strategy.
All right, Uche, talking about Crocodile Smile now, briefly though, do residents or Niger Deltans really have anything to worry about? Because there have been reports now, and the military is of course defending its image that it's polishing, it's coming out of a poor human rights record. Now, human rights abuse record is coming out of that. But residents, militants still say now that there's some level of intimidation in, this Crocodile Smile that you are, commending. So do residents have anything to worry about?
Well, I think that criminals have a lot to worry about, because look, if you look at the sophistication of the arms, that these criminals have been discovered with, you will understand that, even citizens themselves have a lot to worry if this level of stockpile of arms continue. Now, what do? Do you allow the stockpile of arms to continue so that eventually citizens will be terrorized? Or do you allow the military to go in and rid the communities of these arms and these very unpatriotic elements? If you ask me, I would say, let the military rid the people. If you know the amount of assassinations that has been going on in places like Rivers State, for instance, a friend of mine, Ken Aswete, was just assassinated a few days ago. Why are all this happening? It's because these sophisticated arms are in the hands of these criminals. So for me, because of the experience coming out of the gruesome murder of that frontline human rights activist a few days ago in Port Harcourt, I am fully in support of everything that will rid the communities, both in Rivers State and in the Niger Delta region, of all these very dangerous weapons. So if it takes the military going in to do the needful, so be it. Now, are there collateral damages? Why not? Because these people are also very smart. They live in the communities, they use community people to shield themselves. So, there are some unavoidable aftermath of some of these activities. So what do? I think that, we have to continue to dialogue with the military to observe international standards, but I think it is important that the military should go into the region and take away as much as possible some of these, illegal arms stockpiled in the communities and in the hands of these criminals, whether in the name of agitation or anything, who are terrorizing the communities, carrying out assassinations, carrying out a lot of bank robberies, carrying out a lot of kidnappings. These trends are unacceptable and needs to stop.
All right, Uche Igwe, thank you very much for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.